Chin, why don't you start by talking? You're the CEO of DSP Concepts. Is that right?
That's right.
I've got the name right. You can tell I'm learning a lot here as we get introduced. So, Chin, you're the CEO. Steve, what do you do at the company?
So I head up our automotive team.
Okay. And John?
Yeah, I'm responsible for the automotive product strategy. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, Chin, what is DSP Concepts?
Well, okay, so DSP Concepts, we basically focus on audio, solving audio problems. And actually, my husband is the technical founder, and our first investor in our company was BMW. And
That's a pretty
BMW,
good first customer.
well, not first investor.
First investor.
Oh,
yeah.
investor. Wow, even more impressive.
And I almost thought like, oh, wasn't sure that they were going to invest because they wanted to use our technology. And, John can get into the technology later, but they wanted to use our technology for a while, but then there were people fighting against that, and namely Harman. And as part of the due diligence, they said, hey, we want to interview your customers. We want to interview your competitors. And I said, why do you want to interview Harman? Like, they're not going to say anything good. And sure enough, the next day, they did call. We gave them a name. They called, and then we got a legal notice from Harman to me and to BMW investor. And I said, oh, okay, that's the end of it. But then
What'd they tell you? To cease and desist, or what was the letter about?
Well, basically, the one employee from Harman told BMW, oh, yeah, DSP Concept, they're going to be a threat to us. And, or, just in general, like that. And then the legal form basically only said, hey, whatever this employee said is not like an official company stance, and, you can't use that or whatever. And so, but that got BMW even more interested to want to invest. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's good. And so I want John to later explain. So anyways, John is a rare bird, okay, and we're very lucky to get John. And I would have to say, as a CEO, probably the best thing I can do is to have the best people working for us. And I met John through an orchestra, and John plays the bass, I play the piano, and we would talk about, automotive stuff on the side. John was working at Tesla at that time.
Mhm.
And I tried to have John join us. And so John actually had to walk away from Tesla after moving to California. And I said, John, if you don't come on board, I'm not going to take on the investment. And I remember sitting on the streets in Palo Alto there and say, John, tomorrow I have to give an answer. You're going to help, and, you're going to join us. And John did. And so kind of, that was in 2017.
Okay, so I got to ask John right now. I mean, people are dying to get hired by Tesla. You walked away. Why?
Well, it was it's a long story. I know Tesla was a great place.
Okay, in a nutshell. We don't need
Yeah.
a chapter
No,
or verse.
Tesla was a great place. Very energetic, lots of innovation, very creative thinkers. But talking to Paul and Chin, it was just like this. I have an audio and acoustics background. That's really my first love. I kind of did a detour into software-defined radio and head units and infotainment for Ford and Visteon and TI. And so this was kind of more back to my roots, and going to a smaller company was attractive as well, right? Kind of starting from the ground up, building something from scratch and really creating something out of very, very small start. So that was the attraction. I think I had worked in large companies for almost 40 years, so this was a new type of venture.
Yeah. Steve, what's your story? How did you come here?
Yeah, interesting story there. So actually, I have 20 years of history working for Harman. Which is where we met, and leading multiple global organizations there. And I knew
You didn't send that letter, did you?
I did, yeah, yeah.
No,
Yeah, I didn't. But
Steve wasn't the person, but
Yeah.
it's just
I figured. I just thought I'd throw that.
yeah. Nope, of course not. But so I knew the way. I knew the traditional way of delivering audio right throughout the industry. And we all know that the industry is going through dramatic changes right now, especially in this software domain, right? All the OEMs are trying to figure out a new way to design product, a new way to purchase product, and the relevance of audio has grown hugely in a car. It's no longer just audio playback, but now it's being used for MVH, it's being used for powertrain, it's being used for voice command, on top of all the new different formats that are coming into a car just for playback, right? So all of that's changing. And when I was called about DSP Concepts, and I researched your company, and I spoke with Chin, and I spoke with John and Paul, and heard the idea that this platform was going to deliver a true software-defined solution that takes it from, let's call it design, all the way to production. There's nothing else out there like that. And I honestly, John, when I saw this, I said, if it's 50% of what I'm reading and what they're saying, this is a gem. And I made the commitment at that point to come on. It's about 2.5 years ago now. So, of course, what I've learned is it's all of that. It's amazing. And so far, we're actually, in just the 2.5 years I've been here, we've made an incredible impact on the industry. Yeah, and there's so much more coming. But it was really that convergence of what the market needs are, where the industry's going, and I mean, we're just kind of the perfect product at that moment.
So you guys got to help me understand, because I'm a neophyte in all this. DSP is digital signal processing, right?
Right.
Okay, I got one part right. Now, my understanding is you're using a chip, and my understanding, chips, it's all binary, ones and zeros, right? But you're dealing with noise, which tends to be very analog, right? So these are digital chips that work in an analog world. Do I have that right, or what?
Yeah. So basically, you're mathematically representing signals, which could be noise, could be audio, could be voice signals, and you're representing them in ones and zeros, as you say, right, in a digital format. And then what happens is, now that once you get them into a digital format, you can do all kinds of things with them. You can manipulate the signals, you can mix them, you can change the frequency responses, you can put echo cancelers in it, you can do all kinds of interesting things that are almost magic, right? But by pulling them all into a single domain, you now have complete view of all of the audio in a vehicle, right? Whether it's a chime or a voice prompt or an outside noise coming in, or a Dolby Atmos multi-channel system playback, right? It all comes through this computer, and now it can be manipulated in a way that presents new experiences to the end customers, right? And this was never possible before, because everybody was building boxes, right? I had an amplifier box that did playback, and I had a telematics box that did voice processing, and I had a road noise cancellation box that did road noise cancellation. And so they didn't really communicate very well with each other. And this whole software defined approach is now pulling that all into one central computer, and allows us to take all of the audio signals from wherever they come from and pull them together and mix them and do things that just weren't really possible before.
So it sounds to me like you're able to greatly simplify. I mean, you're getting rid of all these other boxes that you're talking about, right? Putting it in one. Automakers have got to love that. Anything that frees up, the real estate, as they call the interior space of a car, is huge. But if it's software defined, then that would suggest to me you could do over-the-air updates that would add capabilities that were not there when the car was built.
Yes, that's correct. And having come from Tesla, that's exactly what we were doing for years, right? And now we're seeing the rest of the industry kind of getting onto that bandwagon of, this is the way to go forward, right? The customers are used to updating their phones and their tablets all the time, right? And so that mentality on the consumer side is already there. right? So now just taking that into the vehicle and making the product better over time versus making it obsolete over time, right?
And
So-
what we tell our customers, the OEMs love us because we say, well, you have all these black boxes. You source it from Harman, you source it from, you know, a bunch of tier ones, and they deliver the whole thing. It's in a black box, and you know, every time you want to make a change is you know, very extensive change orders, and you know, it's complicated and slow. So we go from a, you know, black box to an open box. So we make everything visible. And now you can tie in, you can source from different vendors, even IP suppliers, and you can have multiple, you can decide to use both system, both IP and Harman IP on all different tiers of cars, and including non-branded, you know, which is, we can provide you the building blocks and we help build up the building blocks. So we basically expanded the options for OEMs, how they want to run things, and it's all done without having to code much, because we provide this canvas. So this existed in all these other areas of the industries, like graphics, you know, ML, you know, but not in audio. It's just, you know, we provide this system that is open, and we work on all different chip architectures. So they love us. They love that as well.
You know, automakers want to do more and more in-house, John, as you would know. I mean, Tesla set the stage for that, right? So with a software-defined audio system like you're providing them, in the past they had to buy boxes, and the Harmans and the other tier ones of the world did everything, right? They handed over a turnkey solution. Does this allow the automakers to do their own programming of what they want this to do? And here's the follow-up that goes to, does that elbow you guys out of the way then?
No, because we're basically an enabler, right? So we provide tools and a workflow and a framework that basically allows the end customer to do what they want. They can take on as much or as little as they want to. So we have some customers that like to design everything themselves. They just use our AudioWeaver as a tool to enable that. We have other customers that still go through a tier one model, right? And so then they'll push the concepts down to the tier one to implement, but they still have visibility and control of the overall end result, right? So there's still, you know, it's not like overnight all the automakers suddenly decide I want to do, you know, complex audio design, right? It's not that simple, but there's definitely a migration towards that, almost back to the early days of automotive, where everything was vertical. It was extremely vertically designed, right? They owned all of the technologies, all the manufacturing capability in-house, right? And then over time, it kind of dissolved into a supplier relationship with many suppliers owning their own bits of IP that they were specialists in, right? So now that's gone to the software domain. Now there's still specialists. There's people that have very special audio signal processing capabilities in things like, you know, multi-channel playback systems, or in sound staging, or in road noise cancellation, or in voice processing, right? So you can still pull all of those specialists and experts in, but now it's a software problem, and they can use the AudioWeaver platform to pull all the bits and pieces together in one point of integration.
It simplifies that process, John, of actually developing that use case or that end solution. So as John Whitaker was saying, we view ourselves as an enabler. So you know what? It's great if our customers kind of onboard all their talent and leverage our platform to be able to do it themselves. Some go down that path. Tesla is a perfect example of that. We call them super users. They are absolute gurus of using AudioWeaver. They create their own IP in it. They apply it to every vehicle. We barely know what they're doing inside of their corporation with our product. The other side would be, you know, OEMs could still leverage the supply base in a traditional way and say, hey, I want you to build this entire product, but we want you to use AudioWeaver as that platform or framework to deliver all things audio. And they're doing that because they know it simplifies the development process. It provides transparency to the solution that they're buying. They own that solution because oftentimes they'll work with us and kind of purchase the processing block diagram that they want to use in it. And we also, one of the other unique characteristics of AudioWeaver is we consider ourselves chip agnostic, meaning it doesn't matter if you're going to be on a SoC, a DSP, the ARM processor. And we also think of ourselves as OS independent because you can run bare metal, you can run on Linux, you can run in QNX. Doesn't matter. It all looks the same inside of AudioWeaver. So they can apply us through a single tier one on a particular platform and then carry that forward to a whole nother platform with a different supplier and retain most of all of that work that they've done. So it drives a true efficiency.
Okay, so I'm an old nuts and bolts guy, right? So Steve, what do you guys actually ship to the automakers or to the tier ones?
It's software. We are a software platform.
So you're not sending chips or black boxes or anything like that.
Not at all. Not
Very
at all.
interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have tools like Chin and John were describing. They're PC-based tools, and this is kind of where all that creativity takes place. Very easy to use. It's graphical. It's drag and drop type modules that you put onto the canvas that Chin was talking about. So you can actually visually see the solution that you're creating and how it's processing. You can test it, you can debug it, all of that right there on your PC. And then once you determine what target you want to put it on, what chip you want to put it on, you can profile it against that chip immediately. It all is runtime. So you're able to profile it and actually leverage your design to determine maybe which chip is the right chip to put it on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And John, McClure, so basically, the automotive is your most complex audio device.
I've never heard anyone say that, but I believe it.
Oh, yeah.
So it used to be where, you think of audio as a sound system. And of course, now they're getting all very, sophisticated with like zones and, immersive. It's like your third living room, or is it second living room?
Second living room.
Anyway, it's a living room.
Maybe the first for some of
Maybe
us.
the first living room.
Yeah.
It's your conference room as well. Okay, so now it's conferencing. And then there's like chimes and alerts that comes in, and now they want it to be giving you feedback. Okay, so that it's like almost like gaming, right? They design the sound so it gives you, the right feedback. And they want it to sound nice. So it's not just like, random things and, bells, but they want it to be orchestrated. And then on top of that, now cars are going EV. So electric cars don't make sound. So people like Porsche are like, hey, that's part of our identity. Our cars make sound. That's why people buy our cars. So now they are creating and composing their special sound. So the car has to make sound for engines for the person driving, as well as alert sounds for pedestrians. And then even things like, the road noise cancellation. So EV cars now they're like, well, now suddenly I can hear the road because it got too quiet. And so you're adding sound, you're taking out sound, you're orchestrating sound, and all of that added. You need microphones for voice calls and voice assistants. And so it's getting so complicated. And I was talking to somebody, I said, well, and all of them are like require, when it comes to software for audio, they require like different rates and different latencies. So if you're doing like, ANC, right? Like, the Bose headsets, those have to be very low latency. They hear the noise and then they got to cancel it. And now you have that path, and then you have another path that, isn't so low latency concern. So you have to deal with all these like signal data coming in all different rates. different, treatments, and you want to take care of it all in one place so it's like coherent. And that's where, because of the software, route that everybody's going, it's just, I feel like we were very lucky to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, no, in fact, you sort of preempted one of my questions there, Chin, because I was going to ask, with EVs being so much more quiet, did the needs for noise cancellation go away? And what you're saying is no way. It's very much there, just maybe a little bit different, right?
Yeah,
it's actually accelerated it, because road noise is so much more obvious now, because the engine noise has gone away, right?
Right.
So before, the engine noise dominated and people were kind of comfortable. It's like, okay, that's the engine noise. But now the engine's gone and you hear every little bump and bang and tick and squeak. And so it's really brought this whole road noise cancellation technology to the fore. And it's being deployed just about everywhere now. Right?
Yeah. So that triggered a question. Can you do predictive latency? i.e., you got a camera in front of the car and radar and sonar and maybe LiDAR too. You see a pothole coming up. Can you use that info?
Probably not. Because it'd be hard to model every pothole in the world. But the point is that the technology reacts so quickly that it can handle transient noises. Right, you hit a pothole and it goes boom, and it creates an antiphase noise, and it can cancel out much of that pothole noise, right? But that really requires a very tightly defined audio path, so that you can close that loop fast and cancel that noise out as it's happening, right? At least within the time that your ears perceive it. And so that's a tough problem. It's a tough design problem, both in the software domain and in the physical and the hardware domain, because you have to route all these signals from around the car, get them into the computer platform in a very short amount of time, right? We're talking sub millisecond type time frames, right?
Yeah, it's interesting to me, Jen, going back to you, the different sounds that automakers are creating in their electric cars. In fact, I did an interview a couple of months ago with a GM sound engineer, General Motors, and for Cadillac, it was amazing the different sounds that they were mixing together to create a Cadillac sound. But then again, it varies. If you really step into it and want to go fast, they want a different sound than if you're just cruising along. But what amazed me is they were even bringing in Australian didgeridoos. And this blew my mind, NASA has recordings of the sun. And they were even bringing in sun sound, which they and literally he said, I asked him why the sun? He says, it actually sounds warm.
Yeah.
Oh,
interesting. Just amazing what you can do with sound these days.
Oh yeah.
Rivian has a really unique story there as well, John.
How so?
They're using sounds of nature. When you listen to their chimes and different alerts inside their vehicle, they're literally pulling it from different things from nature, different animal sounds, chirping and things like that. And there's a little bit of composition that's taking place with them, but that's their theme for all the sounds that are coming out of their vehicle.
I love that. Yeah, Lincoln actually hired some members of the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. Right. So your door chimes and things like that are actually instruments playing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, you basically have a blank slate, right? So you can be extremely creative, and you can create a brand identity around the soundscape, right?
So
which we see happening actually in the industry right now. This term we've started using now is soundscapes, given there's so many different sounds called chimes, alerts, prompts that are coming from a car, even welcome sounds that the OEMs are trying to ensure they don't become annoying. They're informative, but all of them need to harmonize together, because at the end of the day, there's so much customer input that it becomes brand representative, right? These sounds need to emulate what that brand stands for. And so they've got to really think deep and think hard on how they're going to do that.
Boy, I'm so glad you said that, Steve, because I get into some cars. I test drive all different kinds of cars. I probably drive, 80 cars a year, maybe even more. Some of like the turn signals or the seatbelt chime are so annoying. I mean, and maybe that's by design, to make you try to stop it. but I believe you can treat your customers better than by nagging them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That is the trend, and they're all trying to figure out how best to do it.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask. Sorry, go ahead, Chen.
I also tell the car makers, you know, well, if I know you're doing, reporting on all kinds of cars, all kinds of stuff, and you probably hear all the fancy stuff, self-driving, ADAS, LiDARs, and all kinds of stuff. All those things are great, and they contribute to a car maybe getting smarter. But I call us, DSP Concepts, with audio is the soul of the machine. Because you could have an intelligence, but but you need, that feeling, that the good feeling you get.
I could not agree more. In the past, it might have been the engine. Oh, the sound of the engine. But if you're not into engines, so what? I think everybody's into sound, and so if you can craft something that appeals to them, boy, you've hit a home run.
Right.
Yeah.
And even in the previous days, the engine sounds, the muffler sounds, they were all intentional, right? It was very intentional of what gets out to the customer in the car, what gets to the outside world. It was very intentional, right? So this is just the next evolution of that, right?
So how's business these days? I know, industry volume is way down. It's building, but Chen, how's business look for you guys?
Steve, why don't you? Well, Steve's been with us only 2.5 years, and if you know automotive business, it takes a long time, right, to get in.
That's right.
But I'll let Steve talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, the advantage for us, John, is we're a young company, right? So even though we run, the industry itself has run through some tough times, COVID, supply problems and the chip shortages, right? We're at the beginning of that ramp, right? We're just getting started. Royalties are just starting to impact our revenue. So it's all upside for us at this moment, even though some of the volumes might be a little bit lower than traditionally. So we're onboarding new customers, multiple new OEMs annually. Let me just put it that way. So our roadmap is we're going to be, we're looking very, very strong, 26, 27, 28. Really, that's when the big volumes start pouring in for us. We got a number of new OEMs we're in development with right now, and new commitments coming. So things are looking strong for us.
Yeah.
So how old is the company? How long has it been involved in automotive?
Let's see. Our first automotive customer was Tesla when they started. When Elon Musk took over. And then hold on. Okay, and then so that's when we first got in, but we were doing consulting, and it wasn't until 2017 when BMW invested in us because they wanted to go this route of software development and more control over their technology and the user experience. So really 2017 is like when we kind of made a switch to our business model. Before that, we were kind of just consulting to car companies. And John, by the end of this year, okay, so there are basically, a couple main SoC, the system on chip guys, that play in the main domain controller, right, for cars. And they're basically Qualcomm and Samsung. By the end of the year, you're gonna hear some news like, we support them all, and it's like this software-defined vehicle is gonna be really interesting to everybody.
That's great.
Yeah.
So,
and we're already in. Just say we're already in all the Teslas. We're already in the Mercedes, right? So we've that's launched products that have launched. And to Steve's point, we're onboarding new customers.
Yeah. So when we started with Tesla, they were nobody. Nobody believed in them. They're like, oh, come on. And then so we would tell people, oh, we're in Tesla, and they would laugh at us and say, well, Tesla is not a real car company. And then the next customer we got was Daimler. And now Daimler is like the most conservative company and probably like one of the oldest, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
then I said, well, we got one on the one end and one on the other end. So where do you fit? You know, we can handle everything in between.
Right. So what can you tell me about where you can go in the future? I mean, maybe you can't give much away, but conceptually, you know, especially for my audience, what should they be on the lookout for where you can take your technology and do things in a car?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the neat things about Audio Weaver, and I think one of our key value propositions, John, is that beyond us being a framework to develop and deliver our audio solutions, or let's say an OEM's audio solutions, we also are a platform that allows external IP to jump on board, right? It's very, very easy for third-party IP to either wrap their IP in Audio Weaver, as we say, and be then delivered to the platform, or they can recreate their own IP using what we call our modules or our primitives. And then that gives them that same transportability that Audio Weaver as a platform has. They can go anywhere we are at. That makes it super easy for OEMs to, kind of select whatever IP that they want, right? So, one of, I think, our big avenues is further leveraging the platform in market for all these different third-party IPs to jump on board. And that has a couple of different impacts because it's the ease and access, which is great. But, I'm sure you've heard the criticism, John. Oh, the automotive industry is so slow. Consumer electronics is so fast. They can bring things to market tomorrow. Well, our platform is an enabler, yes, through over-the-air updates, but also because this type of IP, that can be designed by any number of groups, right? Garage company or large company, and be deployed very, very quickly, leveraging Audio Weaver. I think that's a tremendous area of expansion for us.
Yeah,
I also think like, AI and ML is going to play a big part in the whole, for us, for audio. And since every car now has a ton of built-in, microphones, you can use that for diagnostic and even say end of the line testing or during production. Since it's software, it's built in and it's seen the whole system, not just like black boxes independently sitting there. So now, this is going to enable and make more efficient a lot of, when you go see a doctor, what do they use to diagnose? It's always they listen to, using stethoscope. So there's a lot of information in audio.
Yeah. And a lot of it can be exploited. It just hasn't been done yet today because it's just challenging. They have bigger problems to solve. But on real-time diagnostics, while the car is running, end-of-line testing, things like that are possible now because you have not only as Chin said, all the sensors, but now you have a compute platform that can make sense of what the sensors are telling us, right? So there's going to be a lot of growth in machine learning, artificial intelligence, not only in traditional voice applications, but in other applications where internal diagnostics can be applied to help troubleshoot problems before you take them into the dealer, right, or before you take them in to get serviced, right?
Real good. Well, I want to thank you guys for your time today. I've learned a whole lot here. It sounds really exciting. And the fact that it's all software defined is mind-blowingly good. I mean, that's where it's all going.
Yeah.
So again, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
John.
Yeah. Appreciate the opportunity, John.
Yeah.